half full, the revival.
Y'all know what this is. Peace and blessings. It is your boy, Eli Rex, a.k.a. Vibes, and welcome to New York Revival, where it's not just sports, it's entertainment. And I'm here with my brothers, man. You guys know who this is, and that's Mr. Glass Half Full of Nets. Spee if you nasty now.
So, what's going on?
And I'm here with my brother El Jefe, a.k.a. White Jersey, a.k.a. Blue Jersey, a.k.a. Damn It Daniel. And shout out to you. Yes, you, the revivalists in the chat. Please hit that thumbs up, share, and subscribe. We do appreciate all the support. Guys, we have a special guest in the building. We're not going to waste this time. We're not going to go around the room. We've been through all that Monday when we saw y'all, all right? So we're just going to invite our brother right on in, man. We got my man from the Athletic, the New York Giants beat reporter, my guy, your guy, Dan Duggan. Round of applause. Round of applause. Round of applause. We do appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a long time. I think it's overdue at this point, brother. How's everything?
Yeah. Glad I could finally join you. Things have calmed down a little bit, although there's still plenty going on in the Giants world, so plenty for us to discuss.
Appreciate you, Dan. Man. Dan didn't even get mad at me when I was annoying him with all the questions asking him. He's like, "You're gonna think I hate you, but can't do it this time. Can't do it this time." Like, this is just the way it is. As long as it happens, it's all good.
I'm on the other end most of the time, so I'm pretty patient with people who are persistent because I'm bugging people all the time to do interviews with me. So yeah, what goes around comes around.
Yeah, the timing is good because our good friend Monty he's a Giant grabbed a clip. You know, we're talking about patience and all of that. So I think the timing is just perfect because you just came out with that article. That's definitely what we want to get into. But I'll let our fearless leader kick it off there.
Listen, before we get into all that, man, we got to ask you some lighthearted questions here. The Giants, of course, had their draft. Just want to know to get your thoughts and opinion on it. And I want to ask you a little bit more questions within those questions. But just give me an overall grade of what you think the Giants did as far as this year's draft.
Oh, great. I don't do the grades. I'll say just the overall kind of impression of it. I mean, you know, obviously that first round, so much was up in the air there. Were they going to go up and get a quarterback? Were they not? Obviously, they weren't able to. So then from that point, let me backtrack. I think they followed the blueprint I would have followed. I would have aggressively tried to get up to 3 to get Drake May. And then it was very much well documented saying I wasn't sold on J.J. McCarthy. I didn't think they should have traded back. I think they should have stayed and taken Malik Neighbors. So it's hard for me. I can't come out and criticize what they did if it's literally what I wrote like multiple times leading up to the draft. That would be a tough look. So yeah, so I think obviously it would be ideal in their world and in my world if they'd gone up and gotten the quarterback. Couldn't do it, so can't fault that at all. And then the rest of the draft, I mean, I'll take a second to pat myself on the back. I hit in my one and only mock draft. I hit the 3rd and 4th round pick, so I kind of had a sense.
Let's go.
So I kind of had a sense of where I thought that they were going to try to go. Obviously with Andrew Phillips and Theo Johnson were guys that made sense, and they were going to be around in that range. So obviously, can't expect to hit on them, but I did. So again, it's tough for me to criticize when they kind of did what I expected them to do. So yeah, I don't think there was anything to really criticize about the draft, the players they picked. Obviously, we'll see 2, 3, 4 years if they were good players, but process and how they came out of it. I mean, I feel good about it. I would just feel better if they'd somehow figured out a way to get a quarterback, but that was kind of out of their hands, obviously.
I meant to ask you about that, right? Because we talked about the trade up, right? And how that's, basically the X factor of this whole draft, them not being able to get 2, 3. We hear rumors about what the trade was, and it's kind of like loosely the SI article said, they included the first round pick, but they didn't really give us the whole picture here. Could you have the whole picture? Has it been released, or are you kind of just you're going on the tea leaves here?
Yeah, I haven't been able to have anyone like source says this was the final offer. I mean, obviously.
Right.
What's out there makes sense. I know that so Albert Breer had that they obviously offered 6 and then a first round pick next year. I mean, that's kind of bare minimum. Pat Leonard reported they also included their 2nd this year. Again, that to me feels like that's bare minimum. I don't know if there's been any reports anything more than that. So I think that was like a fair, reasonable offer, but also wasn't the Godfather type of offer that was going to get the Patriots to move off that pick. Because the one thing that's kind of come up more after the draft, and you never know. There's spin before the draft. There's also spin after the draft.
Yes.
But it does feel like the Patriots really weren't looking to move that pick. I know they said we're open for business, this and that, but it doesn't feel like they were ever seriously going to do it. They were going to leave that door open in case someone was going to make some crazy offer. But even you start seeing the national reporters Thursday afternoon coming out, the Patriots are sticking. They're going to end up taking Drake May. So I think the Giants did all they could within reason. I mean, I would not have been a proponent as much as I thought they should go get Drake May of giving, another first round pick in the future, or just doing some crazy haul. I think there's a limit. He's not this perfect prospect. So I think they did as much as they could, whether it was the first this year, the first next year, and the second, which again, that's the biggest offer I've seen. But again, that seems reasonable. I haven't heard anything to counter that. But again, it is hard because no one on the Giants wants to come out and tell you, oh, yeah, this is what we offered. It failed. Yeah. So it's a little hard to get someone to fork over that information.
Not only I said it the night of the draft. If we were in the third spot, yeah, sure, we're listening to offers. But they need a quarterback. Why would they go anywhere?
It didn't make sense.
We wouldn't want the Giants to move anywhere if we were in the third spot.
Yeah, and listen, the draft process takes forever. There's so much to talk about. You can talk to different sources at different times, and so the information just kind of goes round and round. But like how it ended up is how everyone would have probably done a mock draft at like the combine. You know what I mean? Like everything went according to plan. Remember there was a time when Marvin Harrison Jr. He might be at 6 for the Giants, so Neighbors is ahead of him. Like no, he was the number 1 wide receiver. He went, he's the first non-quarterback. The Chargers, I think they would have traded out, but also like everyone kind of felt like Jim Harbaugh is going to go get an offensive tackle with that first pick. There was, they're going to go Neighbors. They took the tackle. So, I think that's what happens a little bit. And it's fun. Listen, we all kind of traffic in it. It's a good thing there's that much interest in it. But I think there comes a point in the cycle where people just exhaust every scenario. I remember there was a talk of a 3-team trade, kind of fan fiction that the Patriots were going to trade with the Cardinals, we're going to trade with the Giants, and everyone was going to end up with the guy they ended up with. Like, the Patriots were they wanted JJ McCarthy, but it was all this stuff. I mean, in reality, it played out the top 6 picks. Again, I think it was pretty chalk. A lot of mock drafts were 6 for 6, I'm sure, because those were the guys that were kind of, assigned to those teams in our minds a while ago. And then we just spent a lot of time, thinking of every possible scenario, opposite that.
You said, was it Phillips in the 3rd round? That was one of your hits that you got? What was it about him? Because that was like a lot of feedback from the fans was that was a strange pick there. But like, what did you see? How come that was your pick in the 3rd round?
Yeah, well, so I mean, they had the top 30 kind of tell that when they've done their top 30 visits, the first 2 drafts, those mid-round guys, they're not just kind of spraying them around. They've drafted a lot of those guys over the years. So he was on that list. You look at cornerback. I mean, I think I did my own mock draft, like what I would do, not what I thought Joe Shane would do. And I had them taking a cornerback, an outside corner in the 2nd round. So corner was going to be a priority, I felt like. But when I was just going through the mock simulation, whatever, the outside corners didn't meet what I thought was worthy in the 2nd round. Obviously, that's how it played out. Because if you remember, there was a run on 3 or 4 corners went right before the Giants there at 47. So when I was looking at it with what was available, I still thought they'd address the position. And knowing Phillips was a visitor, Dane Brugler, who I respect more than anybody in this field, he's a big Andrew Phillips guy. Not that means the Giants are, but I was like, all right, he was on my radar to begin with. And then the biggest thing is when you kind of hear how he's described, like as like this physical corner, a guy can tackle from the slot. That's all you've heard about Shane Bowen when he talks about what he wants in corners. Like tackling is the priority. So I don't think a guy like Cordell Flott was going to fit as the slot corner. And Joe Shane kind of let it out of the bag and then tried to walk it back. But he already basically said, Phillips is going to be the slot. We're going to move Cordell outside. I think that makes sense. So I was just kind of looking at like they can't get an outside corner in the 2nd. Maybe the value matches up better with Phillips in the 3rd round. So again, I don't know a ton about him beyond what I've kind of studied, but the fact that Dane vouched for him and I felt like it would match what the Giants were looking for in a slot corner. That's why I went with him in that 3rd round in the mock.
Makes sense. Yeah,
and let me ask you this too, because I find this kind of interesting. The Giants didn't draft an offensive lineman at all in this draft. Just want to get your thoughts on it. Do you feel comfortable the fact that the line was such a huge, letdown, I guess, lack of better words? Are you surprised that the Giants didn't go not with one offensive lineman until way after the draft at this point? And are you comfortable with them going into the season with this offensive line group as you see now?
I mean, I've been around long enough. I don't think anyone can be comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
With the line.
That's not the word.
Not at all.
See it on the field. I mean, the Dave Gettleman quote of like, we're more comfortable with our offensive line, whatever it was, that kind of still rings my ears. I feel like literally every offseason around this time, either we pose a question to the GM or people write stories about the Giants finally fixed the O-line. Like I'm not doing that anymore. I've been down that path too many times when Nate Solder and Patrick Omameh were supposed to be the answers. So I'm going to proceed with caution. As to the not drafting one, like listen, at 6, I thought Neighbors was the right pick. I mean, I guess it would have been interesting if Joe Alt had been there. Maybe they would have gone there. I didn't give that a ton of thought pre-draft, but seems like at least that was a possibility. I'm not.
There's no truth to that trade up thing, right?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Listen, I mean, Adam Schefter has more NFL news in his spam folder than I have, but I just cannot possibly buy that they were trading up for a tackle at 3. That doesn't make any sense. Now, again, if you're going to tell me the Chargers took Neighbors at 5, yeah, I could see the Giants maybe taking Alt over, Dunze if that's how it broke, but no. So you're not taking him at 6. I'm trying to remember who would have been there at 47. I don't remember there being anyone screaming out at 47, like, oh, this is a guy who's,
I guess.
Yeah, and I know BB, the guy the Cowboys took, some Giants fans are upset about. I get it. And then, but after that, now you're talking 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round picks. They only had so many. And again, we're talking Andrew Phillips, very possibly day 1 starter. Theo Johnson, I think everyone loved that pick. A guy who I think is gonna be in the mix right away, but he might be the long-term guy at tight end. So again, I'm not gonna kill him for not taking one in the 5th and the 6th. So I understand the approach there. You look at how they've addressed the offensive line. They went pick heavy the first couple of years. Obviously Evan Neal, Azudu, McKeithen, JMS. So like they've invested draft picks. So part of it, you need those guys to develop. Obviously Evan Neal, but even guys like JMS needs to take the next step. And you'd like to see Azudu and McKeithen maybe establish themselves as quality backups. And then they went a little more veteran heavy this year, obviously with starting level guys, with Illuminor and Runyon, but also even the guys they've signed like Stinney and Schlottman and Matt Nelson, like none of those guys are, plug and play. This is going to be a really good starter. But just if you're talking a 4th round pick, depth wise, like you probably feel better with Schlottman as your backup center than whoever you would have gotten in the 5th round. And listen, if it doesn't work out this year, we're right back next year to, draft as many offensive linemen as you can. Like, so I think it's like, it's okay to take 1 year off. And then I think you hope you get to a position where the overall roster is better and you can just hammer it every year. Like every year, we're going to use day 3 developmental picks. I think at this point, those day 3 picks, like we're projecting roles for these guys, Theo Johnson and Tyrone Tracy. So I don't know they had that luxury. And listen, if it fails, if the O-line's bad again, we'll be back here after the season saying, man, they really screwed up. They didn't invest enough. But at some point, you have to trust maybe your evaluation, your coaching, give it a chance. But listen, they've got burned by that approach many times in the past.
We've been burned too many times. 1st round picks, 3rd round picks. It doesn't matter. We'll mess them up.
Get hurt again.
We'll mess them up no matter where they came from. Dan, just a heads up. There's a tiny bit of static coming from your microphone. If you want to, I don't know if you're able to just restart it or reboot that, but I will. We have a fan of the month question, and I'll get to this as you look into that. But so we have a revivalist of the month every month, right? And this guy during our live mock draft, this guy jumped off the top rope with a super chat that got him revivalist of the month. But he's been an awesome supporter all along. It's Bill Hartnett, so thank you, Bill.
Shout out, Bill.
Yeah, for sending this question in. But he has a question on Theo Johnson. And because Waller, as far as I know, is still up in the air. I think we can't count on him at this point. So do you see Theo Johnson being like a legit contributor? Do you see him moving past Bellinger? Maybe how do you see him fitting in with the Giants offense this year?
First of all, I took the AirPods out. Is it better now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
That's it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. So as far as Dan Waller, I mean, he even said to me, I spoke to him, before free agency, he's like, I understand they have to operate as if I'm not coming back because I might not. So he's very understanding of the situation. So they did. I think Joe Shane was even asked that, like, you have to make this pick with Waller's uncertainty in mind. He said, yeah, of course. So, but at the same time, I don't think you're like taking Theo Johnson to like fill the Darren Waller hole this year. It's a lot to ask a 4th round tight end who, I mean, listen, I named him my favorite pick of the draft by them. I think there's a lot of potential. He wasn't super productive in college. Tight end's a tough position to transition to. So I think that's if he gives you anything this year, great. But it's more like you're 2, 3, 4, and you hope you really hit on something, because that's the one position where I do find also you can have late bloomers. I mean, you can go down the list of guys who were late round picks, didn't do a lot in college, but you get the guy with the right traits, and even Theo Johnson seems like he has the right attitude. So I think even if Waller was to come back, which I don't think will be the case, it's fine to have Theo Johnson learn from him from a year, and then next year he's really ready to take over. So I think I would probably temper expectation in terms of like game in, game out production, but I think he'll be involved, especially if Waller's not back. You have Bellinger, you have the veterans they signed like Stoll and Manhurt. They're more blockers. So I think there's a way for Theo Johnson to have a role this year, but I think the excitement about drafting him should be tempered in terms of like year 1 expectations. I think he's not necessarily it's a project, but he's a guy you'd think it's going to be more of a trajectory that goes up over time. It's not going to like hit the ground running day 1. Because again, you look at his college production, it wasn't like this guy was just absolutely dominating college football. And then you can talk about Penn State's offense, all that, but still, I think you have to at least just temper expectations. Year one is a tough position. This position.
That's totally fair. What do you think? Because this was another one of your hits in your mock draft, right? What do you think that he does maybe better than Bellinger at this point, or will develop into better than?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a more dynamic receiving option. Again, even though the stats weren't there, I mean, you just look at the height, weight, speed, and the way he moves. I think he's just a little bit more of a dynamic athlete. So I think Bellinger is kind of that good, solid two-way, like number 2, number 3 tight end in a good offense. Like, I don't think you want to be number 1 tight end. He's kind of been forcing that role potentially here 2 out of his 3 seasons. Whereas I think Theo Johnson could be like a number 1 tight end. Again, this is, you're projecting
right.
The best case scenario. But yeah, I think that he has just a little bit more of that receiving upside. Like, and I think there's people say like the blocking isn't unbelievable now, but he's willing. He's got the size. He could develop into a good blocker. But if you're looking at like a Pro Bowl tight end, it's going to be mostly on your receiving skills. And that's what he has, that type of upside. Whereas I think Bellinger is going to be a good, solid number 2 tight end ideally. Whereas ideally Johnson becomes the number 1.
All right.
It has the makings of a decent tight end group, it sounds like, if everything goes well, and the guy's progressing throughout the season and developing. So
all I heard is that we have the next Travis Kelce. So thank you for breaking that. and shout out, Bill. Appreciate you. Revivalist for a month. Appreciate you sending that in. We love you. Thanks, buddy. Eli, what we got next?
So Dan, man, you set Giants community on fire.
Fire. Thanks to Monty.
Fire. Thanks to Monty. Thank you, Monty. Shout out Monty, good friend. Actually, a Revival.
Let me jump in real quick. I appreciate it because he did like a 3-minute 47-second clip though. I appreciate.
Yeah, just got it.
Way too often it's like a 10-second soundbite.
Yep.
Take my article and clip one. Like he let it breathe. So I can't say, he took it out of context. That was a good chunk of my rant. So at least I don't have a problem with people if they're gonna do it that way. At least capture kind of the full message, not the little incendiary part you think is gonna get clicked. So I don't have a problem with how he did that.
Yeah, shout out to Monte, man. But definitely you set them on fire. It's because Joe Shane, wanted patience or asked the fans for patience. And you was like, hey, man, there's no time for that right now. You got to put up or shut up at this point. And I'm paraphrasing here, of course. But just give me your thoughts on what Joe Shane has said. And do you feel like the fans are running out of patience? Because some fans will even combat you and say, well, he inherited a mess, or whatever the case is from Dave Gettleman. But just give me your thoughts on the patience part. Give me your thoughts on what you would say to those fans as far as he inherited a lot and etc. Just give me a breakdown of what was your thoughts on that, and speaking for the fans as well.
You really eased into this. We're going from like Theo Johnson questions.
Like we're halfway through. Let's rip the band. Let's get into it.
Rip it right off, man. We're ready to go.
If anyone's clipping, they're not clipping my Theo Johnson comment. But yeah, no. So listen, I don't really try to speak for the fan base. I think that's that's tough for someone in the media to do. But I was honestly surprised that was almost a controversial take, because I thought, I've been around a long time. I thought I did have a pretty good read on the fan base. So when so many people are pushing back, like, what? Like, no, we should be patient. What do you like? This is crazy. This is a hot take. I was kind of stunned. It
shouldn't be a hot take.
This will probably be a long answer that can go in different angles with you guys have follow-ups and stuff. But so, I think messaging is, you can kind of read obviously a lot. Like people say, oh, like the pre-draft pressers, they're useless. They're not gonna tell you another pick. No, but I think they lay a ground floor of what they're kind of setting the expectations for. And Joe Shane, I think a comment that did make a lot of kind of not buzz, but people caught on to at the time, like, we're not a player or 2 away. And then he was talking a lot about how it's going to take time. He's really hammered that message home. We have needs everywhere. So he was kind of really talking about what a sort of a tough situation this is. And then, I don't know if he used the word patience, but I mean, the message felt like, like, let's be patient here. So my only point was, why? Like, I'm not sitting here saying that, fans can be patient or not. I'm just looking at it like you're going into year 3. Like, this feels like the messaging in year 1. And it also feels like the messaging if they had traded up for Drake May. Like, if they traded the capital we were talking about earlier for a rookie quarterback who's going to need some time to develop, I would understand saying, listen, it's not going to be overnight that this kid's not going to come in and be CJ Stroud as a rookie. It's going to take some time for us to build the roster around him. I fully understand that. They didn't go that route. So now you're going into year 3 with the quarterback that just a year ago you gave a $160 million contract to. So if you want to say that you need to be patient, it's like, but why? Because then people will say, you did a great job building the roster. So you've got a great job building the roster. You have the quarterback with the 5th highest cap in the league who's going into his 6th year. So why shouldn't the expectations be that you'll have a good season? And again, they might. I'm not even saying they're going to be 3-14. Like I've seen people saying that. I just don't quite buy the narrative that like, hey guys, you got to be patient. It's like, because then a lot of people say, well, the quarterback's the only issue. That's what's holding them back. And it feels like that meme of like, well, who did this? It's like, you paid him. And again, it gets into such a rabbit hole, and people have such strong takes on this. Like, what were they supposed to do last offseason? Like, listen, I wrote that they should extend Daniel Jones. You can easily sit there and say now, oh, they should have tagged him. Oh, they should have let him walk and signed Baker Mayfield for $4 million. You can say all that. The bottom line is it's Joe Shane's job to get it right. So if you're saying he got it wrong, it's weird for me to say, but hey, kind of like no big deal. That's all I'm saying. Right. Like it's just, again, if you think he's doing a good job, I think there are parts of the roster that are certainly better. But if you're saying like, he's doing a good job and the main problem is the quarterback, it's like that's the most important thing. And he's responsible for the quarterback situation being where it is. So that's the disconnect I couldn't get to. And then to the other point you made about the mess he inherited, like, yes, there's very rarely does a GM win the Super Bowl, ride off, and hand, maybe happen like the Ravens, where I don't they didn't win the Super Bowl, but it was like a succession plan to a really good GM to an in-house guy. That's ideal. Doesn't happen very often. You're gonna come in and have a mess to clean up. And listen, the Giants were in definitely a bad space in 2022, and I think Joe Shane handled that offseason the right way, took his medicine. And obviously had the success on the field, which that's the weirdest part of this whole thing. I just don't think you can continue to use that excuse in 2023 because people talk about the cap. The cap takes a year to clean up. Like it was a bad situation, but it wasn't like these long-term crippling contracts. Like they were able to get out of all the bad contracts within a year. Look at how much money they've spent the last couple off seasons. Last year, they were able to sign Daniel Jones to that contract. They were able to take Saquon Barkley's franchise tag hit. They were able to sign Bobby Okereke. They were able to sign trade for Darren Waller. Then you fast forward this year, able to sign Brian Burns. They paid, the offensive lineman, Runyon, Illuminor, Singletary to a mid-level contract. Like nothing about how they've operated suggests a team that is cap strapped. They've been aggressive. So that's where it's just like, all right, you haven't, your actions haven't suggested like this is going to take a long process. Because if that was the case, you wouldn't be trading for Brian Burns, great player, get it, but you wouldn't be giving up draft picks if you think like, man, we're so far away. It just wouldn't really make sense. And in the draft, you'd be trading back. You would be, accumulating assets for 2025. He hasn't done any of that. So my only question is, why would you not expect the team to be good this fall? And again, most people say, well, because of the quarterback. And that's where we're going to circle here. It's well, that's out to me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And so I want to kind of expand on that, right? Because to me, he's operating, and to some people, he's operating under the premise. It feels like under the premise that he's got time, that he's like, if he's asking for patience, then he has patience in theory, and you don't have patience if your job is on the line next year, right? So it just feels like that. Is that the feeling that you get, that he has a little bit of time to get this second part right, his plan B essentially, or maybe his plan C even? What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he has time. Listen, again, and that's where it gets, people take what you write or what you say, and then they extrapolate it and amplify it to what they think you're trying to say. It's like, well, no, I wrote what I meant, or I said what I meant. I'm not saying he should be fired or he should be on the hot seat even. I'm just saying year 3 is an important year. Year 1 was very good. Year 2 was very bad. So let's see what year 3 brings. But I definitely think he should get a 4th year. Listen, if Dave Gettleman got 4 years, Joe Shane absolutely deserves 4 years. I mean, I think that's kind of the minimum term limits. And then you kind of see from there. But I just don't think you get a pass on year 3. And again, I think it would be different if they had drafted a quarterback, even if it was JJ McCarthy. Right. Just because the patience message would make sense. Now, we don't know how that quarterback is going to pan out, no matter who we got. You get Caleb Williams, you don't know how it's going to pan out. But I would understand, listen, we are resetting it. They didn't reset it. They wanted to, but they weren't able to. And again, maybe through no fault of Joe Shane's, but they weren't able to. So now it's where I'm saying, so all right, going to next year. Let's say they have a bad year, 5-12, 6-10, whatever it may be, at 6-11, and they're picking 6th. And, I'm not a big believer in projecting next year's quarterback class a year out, but let's just say it's as bad as everyone says, and there isn't a guy there. So kind of what's the plan there? So that's where it becomes. So if you think you don't think he's on the hot seat now, where's he going to be in a year from now? So that's all I'm saying. I'm not giving him the pass of hey, it's a free year. You get a free pass. Right. But I'm also not saying he's going to get fired if they have a bad year. I just think there's a little level, there's somewhere in between there that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge exists. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but I just felt like the way he's operated, he hasn't operated as a guy who's everything's for the future. Because again, he admitted last offseason, he quote unquote expedited the process. And then even this offseason, he's been pretty aggressive. I think they've spent like the 4th most cash this offseason. So it's like they have not reined it in. They gave up
enough
pick for a player and then gave him the 2nd highest, edge rusher contract at the time. So like they haven't been like this super future focused team. They're still, to me, trying to win. So if that's what you're trying to do, that should be the expectation. So that, again, kind of brings me home to my point yet again.
It seems like he's trying to carry out 2 different plans at once. He's telling you to be patient, but then he's making these moves like getting the big edge rusher in his prime. Like those are moves to win now. So why spend that big money if we have to be patient? Are we winning or are we not? What are we trying to do? And thank you, AJ, for the super chat. Kind of saying like that's an introductory press conference kind of message, not necessarily something you say to Giants fans who are, more than a decade removed from the last
read the room
title. Yeah, read the room.
Read the room.
And not that, prior to 3 years, it's not his problem, but understanding your fan base and understanding what last year looked like and the contract you gave out. Like the best point you made is the quarterback has the 5th highest cap hit. That's a win now situation. That is not a situation to be patient. If we are going to be patient, then don't do that. Do what you have to do at quarterback and build the roster. So do one thing or the other, but he's trying to operate in both lanes, and that's where fans are going crazy.
Totally agree. And let me say this to Brother Dan. The one elephant in the room everyone seems to talk about, of course, is the quarterback position as far as Daniel Jones. And this seems like insanity at this point where we're kind of repeating the same thing, expecting a different result, right? Is that, hey, this is going to be his breakout year. This is going to be his breakout year. We're now entering year 6 of the Daniel Jones era. 2 different coaches, one GM, of course, is gone, and they seem like they're hitching their wagon to him. But at this point, from your opinion, have you seen enough of Daniel Jones to say, okay, he just didn't reach his potential yet? Or are you at this point where you're saying, okay, I think we've seen enough, and it's time for a new quarterback at this point?
Oh, I mean, listen, I've definitely kind of been out on Daniel Jones, but I don't see an alternative at this point. That's why I was so, hell-bent on trying to get one in the draft. And again, I understand why they couldn't, blah, blah, blah. So I already covered that. So now it's like, I don't think they have a better option. I keep seeing this Drew Lock sort of momentum on Twitter. And so I don't get it. Like, I mean, I understand you might want somebody different, but I still think Daniel Jones, again, I've been like labeled a Daniel Jones hater. I think he's better than Drew Lock. Like, I don't think that's a bold statement to say. So I would think he would still be the starting quarterback this season. My problem with Daniel Jones really at this stage is I think, what's the ceiling, a 2022 like season, and then where does that leave you? So it's like they had maybe a chance for the off ramp this year because they were picking 6th. If they win 7-8 games, where are you picking then? 8th, 10th, 12th, wherever that leaves you, and you're in more of no man's land. And again, so that's where it gets really tricky with him. Like I don't think I think the discourse on him has gone way too far the other way. Again, from a guy who's known as a Daniel Jones hater, like he's not Zach Wilson. Like he's not terrible. Like he's mediocre. I think he obviously should be striving for more. They thought from what they saw in 2022, and everyone turned off that Minnesota playoff game feeling like, oh man, they might have something here. And then last year was so much worse than anyone could have envisioned. That's why, like, when I talk about the tagging option, I didn't think tagging was really the right way to go with him because I just figured last season would be you kind of know the
new base.
Jones going to finish. It's not going to be unbelievably better. Yeah. I didn't expect him to be unbelievably worse. I mean, I know there's a million factors that contributed to that, but that's why I feel like the tag, you're just kind of like delaying the decision on the guy who you kind of know what he is. And then again, it was such a disaster. Obviously now, you wish you tagged him because you could just, clean your hands and move on. Yep. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's very unlikely that there's going to be some huge year 6 breakout. I mean, there's better pieces around him, but he still, he did lose Saquon. Waller likely not going to be back. Hope the O-line's better. Kind of putting a lot on a rookie wide receiver to expect him to be this guy who vaults Daniel Jones into an echelon he has never been in. But I think at this point, this is their best option. So you just kind of, I don't know what you're hoping for if you're them. Do you hope it's just a terrible year and you're picking first and you get whoever the number 1 quarterbacks next year? Because again, like 8-9, 9-8, the one thing Dave Gettleman said that is rung especially true, and it's ironic because he kind of created it, is the whole quarterback health thing, where you just kind of get stuck with a guy and you're going round and round and you can't get off. And that's exactly where they've been with the guy that he picked to not be on that type of cycle.
That's kind of what I want to then further go down that path, because you mentioned Drew Lock, right? And like now a lot of people are sticking their hopes to like, hey, if Daniel's not that good, we got Drew Lock and maybe he could at least chuck it, right? Because like there's been a lot of fans that are just scared of the conservativeness of Daniel Jones, and you need someone that could just chuck it to neighbors if need be. How short or long is this leash that you feel right now with Daniel Jones? Does he look like he's good to start? And if he stinks for a month, is there a real chance that we see Locke going forward, or how big is that Locke, monkey in the room?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. It started with the Seahawks GM John Schneider when he said that they signed him, telling him he's going to start, and obviously the Giants jammed that toothpaste back in the tube. Now I've heard from people that wasn't what was said. Again, same thing as sort of the draft compensation. Nobody from the Giants is going to tell you, that's true. They don't want that message out there. It kind of runs counter. Like usually that is the message you want to send to players. Come on in here, the best man's going to win. So they're making an exception here. So it feels like they're trying a little too hard to change that message. That being said, I think Daniel Jones is going to be healthy. Like I haven't checked his MRIs lately or anything like that, but you see him, he's out there in OTAs, he's on the field. The one thing no one can criticize about him, he's going to put in the work. He's going to be dedicated to his rehab. He's all of that stuff. He's not going to like skip rehab and have setbacks because of that. So, I mean, as long as his knee holds up from where it's at, and he said there's been no setbacks, I'd fully expect him to be under center day one of training camp because, that's what his target date is. I have no reason to think he won't meet it. So again, I think he's the best quarterback on the roster. To your point, like, Locke will chuck it. I kind of think that's all Locke does a little bit though. Like that's what he did in that year in Denver as a starter. Like, I think he had like 16 touchdowns, 15 picks. Like he was chucking it. The one thing that, of course, in the back of your mind though, that you saw like Tyrod Taylor and even Tommy DeVito to an extent have more success down the field than Daniel Jones in the same offense. So yeah, that maybe then you say, all right, well, Locke's better than those guys, so he would be an upgrade. But like, I mean, again, I keep saying this to preface it. Like, I've been labeled as the Daniel Jones hater, and I think it's been overstated because, like, they gave him that contract. He started 6 games. Would he finish 4 of them healthy last year? So we're gonna totally throw the guy away. Like, that Viking start again. As much as I think that it was kind of a bad thing in some ways because it emboldened them to give him the contract. That was only like 8 times ago that he was on a football field. He played like that. So we're just gonna completely dismiss the possibility he could play okay because. Again, I'm not making excuses for how last season went, but the facts are what they are. Like, Andrew Thomas was hurt, Saquon was hurt, Waller was hurt. They did play Murderer's Row. So again, that's not to excuse his performance. Again, I can't keep going back and forth. Like I'm out on him, but I'm not as out on him.
You're Daniel Jones lover now. Come on.
As much as probably people think I am. So I think he deserves it. Like because like what's the worst that can happen? I don't know if you guys want to get injury guarantees, we can. But like, what's the worst that can happen as far as performance? He stinks. Let's just say they start 1-5. But sure, you want to play Drew Lock, knock yourself out. Like I'm not saying Daniel Jones is the starter indefinitely, but I think it makes sense where they are right now. They're basically stuck with him. So I think you should give him at least a chance. And then again, if he plays really well, then hey, we're back on track. That contract looks great. We're going to restructure his deal and he's the guy. And if he's anything less than that, you're moving on anyways. But I think it makes sense to at least give him a shot. Like I don't think I'm ready to just move on without letting him get one last shot.
My biggest thing, and like I think he is going to health wise be okay. He is tough. That's probably his best attribute, which is not necessarily what you want to be the number one thing you say about a quarterback. But last year, and it could have been factors of the O-line or whatever else, but it was that like hesitance to not take that shot because there were a lot of film breakdowns where it's like every week there are guys open, there are things happening, and he's just not making them. So like at times you're like, give me a gunslinger, give me somebody who's going to give you a shot to put points up. Our defense seems to be always good enough at minimum, like to be a winning football team. And then the offense is 3 and out and they get gassed and you lose it in the fourth quarter. It's just like an annoying trend of you have to put points up now. You need a guy who's going to take shots, and now you have speed all over the place at receiver. This has to be a year where you let it go.
No doubt. That's why it's like the leash question. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a long one. It can be 4 weeks. It can be whatever. You like a bench after 2 weeks. So it can be a short one, but I think give him a chance, healthy, improve supporting cast, whatever you want to say. Give him a chance. If the team's doing bad, he's doing bad, then it's very easy to pull the plug. But I think I would go into the season giving him one last shot and see how it goes. But certainly it's not like he's a point of the starter and there'll be no challengers as the season progresses.
Has any team waited 6 years or like gone 6, like in year 6 being like, I think this could be it, guys. I think he'll you know what I mean? Like I don't see any other team give that much runway.
I have to look it up. I mean, he's one of the longest tenured starting quarterbacks in the league. Like if you go around and look at the starters on every team, because a lot of guys have retired or guys have, Russell Wilson type guys have moved teams. He's like, and I want to say off the top of my head, he's like probably like top 5, definitely top 10 longest tenured starting quarterback in the league. And that's amazing. And they haven't drafted a single quarterback since he's come in. So
Wow.
It is remarkable the amount of job security he has. I mean, you will see like old time Giants fans will talk about like Phil Simms. It took till, I don't know if it was year 6, whatever year it was for him. It's a little different era, different times.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but no, I mean, the modern era, it's pretty rare. I mean, I can't think of one. Again, that's why my outlook is pretty bleak. For I don't think it's suddenly going to happen for me.
Authentic had a good comment.
Yeah.
Here. Alex Smith. I forget what the first 6 years looked like for Alex Smith. If it looked like anything like this.
Not this bad, I don't think. Not this bad. But enough about DJ. One last question, Dan. I know you're busy. Again, thank you so much for giving us your time during the middle of the day. I know you're always busy over there, man, at the Athletic. Good shit over there. And one last question. All right, the draft is done. Everything's done. Who do you see the Giants? Do you see the Giants using that Waller money and just getting one more decent vet? In what position do you think is that one last, I guess, quote unquote, splash that they might add other than depth?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny you should say, because I wrote a story on that published this morning, kind of going through the roster and who could be available. So, yeah, I can pull up my own work right here to reference.
Please do.
So they have $6.1 million in cap space right now, but that's pretty much what it'll cost to sign the draft class, more or less. So they're basically at even. But so if Waller retires, let's say it's before June 1st, that's $6.7 million. And then they can create another $24 million if they just did max restructured with guys who are core players like Andrew Thomas, Brian Burns, Bobby Okereke, Dex Lyons. So, I mean, they could get $30 million like that. Yeah. I don't think they're going to do that. Like,
no, that's
we're just to bring it home to the patience point. You can't make the patience point and then go all into, sign guys in April and May, or, it's May now. Right. I don't think they're going to do any of that. I think it's, the Waller money. It's kind of like that's the rainy day fund. And so I think, based on what Shane's done in the past, I'm not expecting any big splashes, to use the word used at this point. There are guys out there, though, who would make sense. Like, if you were going to make a splash, Calais Campbell, there's corners, Stephon Gilmore jumps out. Yeah. But those guys are going to come in real money still. Like, they're not at the, like, I'm signing for the minimum or whatever. They're going to want real money. So I don't think the Giants should or would go there, but those are the guys that are out there. So I think realistically, they're going to wait and, around camp, probably sign some guys for minimum, a little over the minimum. Maybe you restructure one of those guys I mentioned, but not kind of go crazy with all of them. But, like, Andrew Thomas is a guy who signed for so long and he's got a big base salary. It'd be pretty easy to create like $8, $9, $10 million, I think, with him. But in the position is cornerback to me, because if we talked about, I thought they would, target an outside corner. The draft didn't really work out, but I mean, hard to feel super comfortable with. It's such an important position. Like the second defensive lineman next to Dexter Lawrence, important position, but like there's some guys you can throw in there. I don't want to be like throwing guys in at cornerback too. So we're talking like Nick McLeod, Trey Hawkins, Cordell Flott. Like, that would be a big projection for me to feel like any of those guys are definitely ready for prime time. And you do look, they brought in, Darius Williams, Tre'Davious White for visits. So it feels like that is the position they were at least willing to pay, once upon a time during this offseason. So the guy I mentioned in this piece was Akella Witherspoon, who fits that veteran, like solid guy, but probably not going to be as expensive as the, Xavier Howard, Steven Nelson, Gilmore type guys. So maybe if they're going to spend like $4 million on a veteran, he'd be the guy. But yeah, I'd be surprised if all of a sudden, like, they loosen the belt and like go hog wild. Because again, you just talked all this patience stuff, spending money on, 1 year stopgaps doesn't fit that at all.
Sure.
You can easily restructure those guys, but do we want to kick money into the future when, presumably next offseason, you're hopefully ramping up and being aggressive and potentially pursuing a veteran quarterback. So you want to have as much money kind of on hand as possible for next year. So yeah, I don't think they'll be super aggressive, but I also would be surprised if they didn't sign anybody. I'm sure before camp, there'll be a signing or two of like a guy you've heard of, but not anybody who's like a huge splash that's going to like, blow you back. Like, oh, wow, they got a big time starter here. I think it would just be solid veteran to stabilize a position like D-line or corner.
Makes sense.
Awesome. Well, guys, of course, man, you guys know who this is by now. Dan Duggan of The Athletic. We want to thank you so much for your time. Just tell the people where they can find you. Of course, we got the banner down there, but tell the people where they can find you, brother Dan.
Yeah, so obviously, Twitter, DDuggan21, The Athletic. So appreciate anyone who subscribes, checks it out there. And then even on The Athletic, we do these things called live rooms with me and Charlotte Carroll. They're kind of sporadic in the off season, but during the season, we try and do them every Monday morning. So check us out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. I do appreciate your time, brother. And of course, man, this is some great stuff, man. Hopefully we have you back on in the season, my brother. Thank you so much.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming
Take
on,
care,
man.
man.
Appreciate you, Dan.
Man, some good stuff, brother Dan put down for us, man. Wow. Shout out to Revivalists in the chat. Over 500 people here today to listen to our brother Dan Duggan. We hit some points for you guys. So hopefully you guys love it.
We hope we got it all in.
Hope so, man. Go clip it. Do what you got to do. Trust me, we won't be like, hey, man, what'd you take it from us for? No, go have a blast. This is what it's for, all right?
Just tag us. That's all we ask.
That's all. Just tag us. Give us some love that way.
You guys are pretty good about that usually. They're good about that.
They are, man. But please, everyone, hit that thumbs up, man. It is absolutely free. This is how we get more guests onto our platform. It's algorithm, it's numbers, right? It's all a number game. So please hit that thumbs up. Don't be a hater. Hit that thumbs up. We do appreciate you. Let's just recap a little bit, man. What was said. Oh my goodness, there's a lot. I feel like, man, the fans are running out of patience. I know I'm running out of patience. I just can't take any more losing, of course, man. Let's go around the room a little bit. Mr. Glass half full. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, he hit on it all, man. He explained his comments from earlier. He gave us some good free agents to look at. Talked about the draft. I love Dan, man. He's real. He doesn't. I feel it never feels like he's playing sides. I subscribe to The Athletic. One of the main reasons is because of Dan. He does great work. So when he says something, it gives it validity, and everything he said makes sense. It checked out. So loved having him on, and loved the insight that he gave us there.
Totally agree, Hef.
Yeah, in general, I think we should be careful just to label somebody a hater, because they might be, a little bit hesitant to be all in and just throw their blind faith towards a team. Like, this is a team that's been in the dumps most of the last decade. So it's fair to have criticism. It's fair to question the people in charge until the product on the field gets much better. And that's all we want at the end of the day, right? I wish our problems were, well, who should be the guard? Because we have all these great we have so much depth on the offensive line. We should probably trade some and get some more picks. Like, those aren't the conversations we're having. We're desperate to put a team together. So Dan, I think, has an honest look at the Giants, and people are quick to call haters if it's not roses and rainbows, but you got to be honest about the team you're watching and the players you're watching. And I encourage you to look around the league and see how other quarterbacks are playing, because it's eye-opening, and it makes you dream.
Yeah, I totally agree. And listen, man, I just hate the fact that someone giving you their honest synopsis of things or their honest opinion, or just looking at it and be like, yo, this ain't right. It's not a hater, man. It's really just people saying like, yo, this doesn't look right. This isn't right. And we demand something, or we demand a change. You know what I mean? So shout out to Dan Duggan, man. I don't think he's a Daniel Jones hater. It's just in year 6 that we're going into, guys. Even for the entire team, let's not say Daniel Jones. I don't want to seem like I'm picking on them. They have to get better everywhere. Yes, we got one playoffs out of the deal, but we need more. We haven't been winning since 2011. Then we won 2015. We went to the playoffs. Then it's been a drought, guys. So I think fans, we should demand more and not settle for mediocrity at this point. And I do understand a lot of people go, well, hey, we lose and then we win Super Bowls. I think that's better. No, listen, I'd rather be competitive and actually have winning football games, man. I really freaking do. If year in and year out, where we could compete for those every single year, because it just takes that one spark to get us through there and hopefully win a Lombardi, man. So just give me that consistent win in that team, man. I think it's enough. And I'll tell you about this. I just want to go around the room real quick. Last question for you guys. Give me how your expectations are going into the season. I'm not talking about win-loss. I'm just talking about each game. Are you taking it one game at a time, or you guys are like, hey, man, let's go Giants, man. We're going to take it all, and that's it. Just give me your expectations for the season, and I'm going to start with El Jefe on this one.
I'll just say I'm in a wait-and-see mode. I said that the other night. I don't have super high expectations. I think Dable is a good coach. That I think the floor – I know you don't want to talk wins and losses – but there's a floor that's going to keep us from completely bottoming out. So if they get healthy and all these things come together, I think they can be competitive. And in a 4-team division, I just need to see us start to close that gap and be one of the teams in the hunt. It's only a 4-team division. And granted, Eagles and Cowboys are 2 of the best in the NFC, but you got to start to sniff a division title here. You've got to turn the corner. And it's got to be this. Year 3 is pivotal. This can't be another dumpster fire. So my expectations are low. So I'm not going in with division titles and playoffs in mind, but I'll be pleasantly surprised if that happens.
Totally agree. Speed.
Yeah, my expectations are, win total aside, development. I want to see who's going to be here going forward and being the part of this new core that's forming. And I think we're rounding out the edges of this roster. And obviously there's important pieces missing, the most important piece missing. But I want to see no more blowouts. We can't be walking into the first game, getting our asses handed to us 40-0. No more San Francisco games. No more, if you could just be in every game, show that you're competitive and show that you are right there. You need that last piece. That's what I want to see. Whether that's 6 wins or 8 wins with a couple of competitive losses in there, a couple of competitive, wins, whatever. Don't get blown out. Show you belong on that level and that you're close. And I think that's going to go a long way to, quelling some guys' fears about where we are as a franchise and what we need going forward. Just show us.
Spiro, maybe we need to readopt your 2022 slogan, which was "Make losses fun again."
Yes,
just be a football team. Go out there, score some points. If you get beat, you get beat. Just make losses fun.
Upset Dallas maybe at one point. They beat Philly last year, but maybe throwing another win against Philly. Be competitive in these big games, and that's what we want to see. We want to see that we have the right people and pieces in place. That when we get that last piece that we need, it'll get us over the edge, and we are competing for sure in 2025.
I'll tell you this, guys. We've been down this road before where we say, hey, make losses fun again. Let's compete. We want to see a competitive product, and then we're heartbroken, man. So for me, my expectations going into the season, I have none. If the Giants win, the Giants win. If they lose, they lose. Of course, I would take the win, and I would take the playoffs. Of course, obviously. I'm a Giants fan. I root no matter what. Playoffs. But I have no expectations for the New York Giants, man. I just don't want to be heartbroken again. I just want to be kind of elated at this point. If the Giants start losing, I just go, you know what? Hey, they're not ready. You know what I mean? And then I don't think anyone's going to get fired this season. I think the leash is pretty long for Brian Daboll and Joe Shane at this point. Because look at the tenure, as Dan Duggan said, that at least Dave Gettleman had 4 years. Give those guys the same freaking string at this point. So, but I have no expectations, man, this season. I hate to say it, man, but I'll root for the Giants. I'll root for wins, but I'm just not putting my heart into it like we did last season. And we were just like, damn, here we are. Then we're all fighting each other again on X as everything else. But
put your heart into the Knicks and Rangers because we need it, man. We fucking need it. We need it.
Knicks and
tough. Hey, Knicks and 6. I got him in 7. I had him in 7 at the beginning.
We ain't doing that.
Really wish it was done in 5. Man, a gut punch last night. But we need the passion.
But that's what you live for. I was screaming. I was up and down off my couch screaming I want that for the Giants again. Just that.
We need that. We need
that where every game matters. Enough of this rooting for losses. Enough of this tank for whoever. I just want a fucking good football team.
I totally agree, man. Totally agree. And shout out, man. Like Hev said, put it on the banner. We have 541 people in the building for an afternoon show.
Love it.
It's unprecedented. We do appreciate you guys. This is what we do pretty much all year, man. Just have fun, bring some guests in, and talk our talk. We are the people. We are for the people, man. And of course, man, we got to wrap this up, man. 2 shows in a week. Holy cow. We are working.
Hey,
we're not done yet. We're not done yet.
5. Yeah, we're not done yet. We might have one more for you guys. And listen, we would do 5 if we could. We love doing this shit, man.
I do, man. Trust me. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to the revivalists in the chat. Don't forget to please hit that thumbs up. Subscribe. We do appreciate all the support, man. And of course, man, on behalf of my brothers, man, of course, if Mr. Glass half full of nets, Speed, if you nasty now. And my brother El Jefe, a.k.a. White Jersey, a.k.a. Blue Jersey, a.k.a. That is some sexy music back there, brother. I see what you got there.
I'm going to use this massage gun as soon as we close out here.
Man, I can't wait to use that one, man. That's all pause and no ditties right there. But shout out to everybody.
We'll edit that, yeah.
We'll edit that one out. Excuse me? Edit that out, please.
And of course, it's your boy Eli Rax, aka Vibes. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace and blessings. Yes, sir.
Eli Rax, El Jefe, Mr. Glass half full, the revival.